Welcome, everyone, to my first podcast I call America at a Crossroads. Today, my very special guest, Charles, my favorite political commentator, and I are diving deep into some truly pressing issues facing our nation. Issues that honestly keep me up at night. We're talking about the fundamental direction of our country, and specifically the influence of what some perceive as a might makes right and two wrongs make a right approach in both domestic and foreign policy.
Thank you for having me as a guest on your first podcast, and good luck with this new endeavor in your life. With that said, let's begin our discussion. It's a heavy topic, Bridget, but a necessary one. I think many Americans are grappling with what feels like a significant shift, a departure from long-held values. When we look at foreign policy, for instance, there's a real concern about the erosion of alliances and a more unilateral stance that prioritizes perceived strength over diplomacy or shared democratic ideals.
Exactly. And domestically, this translates for many into a sense that certain institutions or norms are being challenged, sometimes aggressively. There's this idea circulating that justice can be defined by settling scores, that two wrongs make a right, which historically is a really dangerous path for any society to take, let alone one that prides itself on rule of law.
That perceived desire for retribution or personal vendetta, it's something that permeates public discourse. It makes it incredibly difficult to have productive conversations or to find common ground when the focus shifts from policy debate to personal loyalty or opposition. It's a highly polarized environment, to say the least.
And it's not just about political rhetoric. Let's talk about the economic landscape. There's a strong argument to be made that certain economic policies under our current administration exacerbated wealth inequality. We saw tax cuts disproportionately benefiting the wealthiest, deregulation, and what many critics describe as an environment where powerful oligarchs thrived, further enriching themselves while the middle class struggled.
The idea that trickle-down economics would benefit everyone equally really hasn't borne out for a large segment of the population. The data suggests that the gap between the rich and everyone else widened. The middle class, the backbone of our economy, felt squeezed. And that's not just a statistic. It's families making harder choices, postponing dreams, or falling behind.
It chips away at the American dream, doesn't it? When people feel like the system is rigged against them, it breeds cynicism and frustration. And it's not just about money, it's about dignity and opportunity. When that's eroded, it affects everything.
Absolutely. And speaking of dignity, we also have to address the profoundly troubling rhetoric and alleged conduct concerning women. The public record includes numerous instances of mockery, alleged sexual harassment, and the deeply disturbing connections that resurface with figures like Jeffrey Epstein. It creates a culture where disrespect for women is, for many, seen as normalized or even acceptable.
It's devastating to witness, Charles. For many women, and for men who respect them, these actions and words aren't just political gaffes. They represent a fundamental attack on their worth and safety. And when such behavior comes from the highest office, it sends a chilling message. The conversations around the Epstein files, for example, just reinforced a sense for many that there's a pervasive culture of protecting powerful men, even in the face of serious allegations.
It casts a long shadow, and it makes people question the ethical standards of leadership. And on top of all of this, we have the constant struggle with truth itself. The repeated instances of what many perceive as outright lies, the mocking of facts, the creation of alternative facts, it's fundamentally corrosive to a democratic society.
How can you have a functioning democracy? How can you make informed decisions if the very concept of objective truth is under attack? It's bewildering. It creates this fog of confusion where people don't know what to believe, and they start to lose faith in institutions, in the media, in everything. It makes it impossible to hold power accountable.
It's a dangerous game because once you erode trust in truth, you open the door for anything to be believed, no matter how outlandish. And that's where we start to see the consolidation of power, where loyalty to a charismatic figure replaces adherence to facts or principles.
So then the big question, Charles, becomes how do we as a society address these profound challenges? How do we push back against what many see as an immoral direction, economic injustice, and the erosion of truth and decency?
Well, Bridget, the answer, I believe, lies squarely with the American voter. We've seen this play out, and it highlights the immense power that ordinary citizens hold, especially when they act collectively and deliberately. It means looking beyond the immediate noise.
Absolutely. And it requires us to step back from ingrained political allegiances. For too long, people have voted straight party lines, regardless of the individual candidates or the specific policies being promoted. But if we truly believe in curbing executive overreach, in restoring checks and balances, then we have to be willing to vote differently.
That's precisely it. The midterm elections in particular become absolutely critical. The House of Representatives and the Senate are designed to provide legislative oversight on the executive branch. That's their core function. But if those bodies are dominated by individuals unwilling to challenge power, then that oversight simply doesn't happen.
It's about empowering Congress to do its job, to be a true counterweight, not just to one administration, but to any executive branch that believes it's all powerful. We need representatives and senators who are committed to accountability, to investigating, to holding hearings, and to passing legislation that serves the public good, not just a specific political agenda.
It demands a level of civic engagement and critical thinking that, frankly, has been lacking at times. It means researching candidates, understanding their platforms, and assessing their willingness to stand up for constitutional principles, even against their own party leaders if necessary.
It really boils down to individual responsibility. We can't just throw up our hands and say, that's just how politics is. Because how politics is a direct reflection of how we vote. If we want to shift the narrative, if we want to restore a sense of justice, fairness, and truth, then we have to make those choices at the ballot box.
And it's not just about one election. It's about cultivating a sustained commitment to these ideals. It's about demanding better from our leaders and, crucially, giving them the tools, through our votes, to actually deliver that oversight. Because if the balance of power is truly out of whack, it's the public that ultimately pays the price.
So, for everyone listening, as those midterms approach, remember the power you hold. Look beyond the partisan noise. Consider the character and commitment of the candidates, and vote for a House and Senate that will truly uphold their constitutional duty to oversee and balance executive power. Our democracy depends on it.
Indeed, it's our best and perhaps only path forward to course correct and ensure our institutions remain strong and accountable. Thanks, Bridget, for having me as your first guest on American Crossroads. I enjoyed discussing this with you and your listeners.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you all for listening. Until next time, stay engaged.